So, are we ready? Let me
Yes.
get situated. Get your notebooks out. And let's wrap up this Friday. Okay, so we can all see what's going on here. All right, now we are in chapter 10. We took the test on chapter 9 on quadratics. Then we've been working on chapter 10. We took 10.2, which was mean, mode, and median. Then we took 10.4, so we skipped 10.1 and 10.3. 10.4 was stem and leaf plots. Now we're taking the last section we're going to do in chapter 10, 10.5. And that's interpreting box and whisker plots. So you have to learn how to construct a box and whisker plot and what it means. And this is the last section we cover in chapter 10. And then on Monday, we cover chapter 11, section 1, and that's the final section on probability and odds. That'll be the last thing we do for this year. The rest of the material next week and the week after is really a preparation for Algebra 2 that will get you involved in. And it's all Delta math assignments starting next week. Okay, so write down 10.5. Now, a box and whisker plot organizes data values into 4 groups called quartiles using a minimum value, a maximum value, and 3 numbers which we're going to call quartile 1, quartile 2, and quartile 3. So there's really 5 numbers which creates 4 segments. And each segment's going to be a quartile. Now you'll notice that the segments are not going to be of equal length. But what is going to be true is that the number of data values that are in each quartile is going to be the same. So it breaks the data into an even number of data values in each quartile. All right, so here's an example. So I'll read these to you so you can write them down. We have, let me see here, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11. 11 data values. These are the number of seconds of song. And we're going to come up with this box and whisker plot. So 173, 206, 179, 257, 198, 251, 239, 246, 295, 181, and 261. Now that's how the data is being given to us. Now, in order to create a box and whisker plot, you must order the data. You have to take these data values and arrange them from least to greatest. And so that's what I've done down here. 173 is the least value. And then it goes 179, so you can write these down. 173, 179, 181, 198, 206, 239, 246, 251, 257, 261, and 295. So that's ordering the data. So that's the first thing you got to do. All right, now to come up with the box and whisker plot, what we do first is take the median of the data values. There are 11 values. Which one is the median? Which, number-wise, which value is the median if you have 11 values? Anybody? Can you guys hear me?
The sixth.
Sixth one. There would be 5 to the left of 6 and 5 to the right of 6. So the sixth one is the exact median. When there's an odd number of values, there is a median. It's when there's an even number of data values, you take the 2 middle ones and take the average to find the median. But here it's odd. So the sixth one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 239 is the median of those data values. And that's going to be called Q sub 2, the second quartile number. So that's the first thing you do, is find the median. And now what that does, it divides this into a lower half, all the values to the left, and an upper half, all the values to the right. And then the next thing we do, you don't include the median. You take all the values to the left, the lower half, and you find the median of those values. And you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those. So the median is the third one, 181. That's the median of the lower half. And that's going to be called Q sub 1, the first quartile mark. And then you take the upper half, these 5 values, and you take the third one. And that 257 is the median of the upper half. And that's called Q sub 3. So you're finding 3 medians. And those are Q sub 1, Q sub 2, and Q sub 3. And you have a min, 173, and a max, 295. And that's what I set up here, a min, a max, and Q1, 2, and 3. Those are the 5 values that are going to create the box and whisker plot. Okay, so now the first thing we do is draw a number line that'll cover all your values. So it doesn't have to start at 173. You can be to the left of 173, and you have to cover all these values, and you can be to the right of 295. And then you have to put values equidistant from your first value to your last value. That covers this distance here. So this is where it's up to you to decide what you want to do. Now what I did is I started at 165 and I went up by 15. So I drew this number line and I put 165, then 180, 195, 210, 225, 240, 255, 270, 285, and 300 every 15. And it goes from 165 to 300, which is a little to the left of the 173 and a little to the right of the 295. So that's the first thing we do, is draw that number line. Okay, and next we start by locating the minimum value, 173. So on your number line, 173 is approximately somewhere in here. We draw a little dotted line down here and we put a point. Then we take 295, the maximum value, which is about right here. Draw that down opposite this one. And underneath this, you put 173. And underneath this, you put 295. So you put your min and your max in there, those 2 points. And now we connect them. Whoops, should be a straight line. Mine's a little curvy. So you should put these equidistant. I drew this a little too high. I should have it a little lower. So it's a straight line going across. So you start by putting your min and your max, and you create a line segment. And we've got 2 points on that line segment so far. Now we're going to locate the 3 quartile marks. So we start with Q sub 2, which is 239. 239 is about right here. So we bring it down, put our mark, write 239, and underneath it, write Q sub 2.
Mr. A,
Yes.
I can't see the points.
Got it?
Thanks.
Okay. Okay. So we went to the Q2, 239, drew it down, put the point on the line segment, wrote 239 and Q sub 2. Then we'll do Q sub 1, 181. Well, here's 180, so 181 is approximately here. You put this in there, come up with 181, and you write Q sub 1. Then you do your Q sub 3, 257. 257 is about right in here, just approximately. And you put your 257 and you write your Q sub 3. And so those 5 points gives you how many segments? 1, 2, 3, 4. And those are the 4 quartiles. And what we know, they're not of equal length, but they each have 2 values, 2 data values in those quartiles. If you look at this, to the left of Q1, these 2 values. Between Q1 and Q2, these 2 values. Between Q2 and Q3, these 2 values is in that 3rd quartile. And to the right of Q3, those 2 values between the 3rd quartile and the max value. All right. So now we have that set up. And now you draw your box. You go to Q1 and draw a segment through and over to Q sub 3. And there's your box. And then you draw a segment down through Q sub 2. And that is your box and whisker plot. This is your box. These are called the whiskers. And what we know, can you see them? Right? Is that each of these segments contain 25% of the data. So there's 25% of the data to the left of 181. There's what percent of the data is in the big box? Who knows? What percent would be in this big box from Q1 to Q3? Come on, each segment is 25%.
So it would be 25%?
So it would be what? You've got two segments.
Or 50%.
50%. 50% of the data lies in the big box. 25% lies in this box. 25% lies in that box. And again, they're not equal length. It's just the number of data values that are in there. 75% would be greater than 181. 25, 25, 25. 75% would be less than 257. So on and so forth. And that's using a box and whisker plot. It breaks your data into 4 quartiles. And then we know the percentages of where the data values lie. All right, any questions on this? Did that make sense? I've got one more problem for you. Let me erase. I can erase. Are you good?
Yes.
Everybody? Okay. So let me erase here. Okay. Now here's one that has 2, 4, 6, 8 values. $60, $15, $25, $20, $55, $70, $40, and $30. Those are the data values. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. So what did we say we do first? We're going to draw a box and whisker plot. Those are the data values. So what's the first step?
Order at least to greatest.
Order them from least to greatest. So you end up with 15, 20, 25, 30, 40, 55, 60, and 70 from least to greatest. Okay? So the first thing we do is order them. All right, now the next thing was find the median of the data values. There are 8 values, so it's an even number. So what are the 2 middle ones?
30 and 40.
So what? 4 and 5, right? So here's 4 is 30 and 5 is 40. So you take the 30 and the 40, what's the average gonna be?
35.
35. So 35 is gonna be the median. That's gonna be Q sub 2. 35 is going to be Q sub 2. And now the lower half, you don't ever include the median value. You take everything to the left. There are 4 values to the left. And so we want the median of those 4 values. So now you're taking second and third, right? And what do you get? 22.5. And that's Q sub 1. Then you take the upper half from 40 to 70, those 4 values. The 2 middle ones are 55 and 60. So you get 57.5. And that's Q sub 3. Okay? All right. The next thing is we draw our number line. We need to go from 15 to 70. So what I did is go from 10 to 70. So you can use the value if you want to. And I went up by 10. So I went with 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, and 70. So there's my number line, 10 to 70 going up by 10s. That's your choice. You decide how to draw your number line to cover the data from 15 to 70 and go up by an equal amount. Okay, and now we want to build the box and whisker plot, right? So what's the first step? Which 2 values did we find first? Anybody remember?
Quartile 1, quartile 3.
No.
Ian?
What were the first 2 values we put down?
The min and max.
The min and the max. So the min is 15, which is right here. So we'll bring it down, put a mark there, call it 15. You write the min, then you write the max is 70, which happens to be here. This time, let me get it a little straighter. And that's 70. And then you connect the 2 with the straight line segment. So that's a little better job this time. That's what you start with, the min and the max, because that gives you your line segment for your box and whisker plot. Then the next value was the second quartile mark, the overall median, and that's 35. And so 35 is right here. We bring it down. We write 35 and we write Q sub 2. And then we go to Q sub 1, 22.5, which is going to be about right here. Write it down. And that's Q sub 1. You've seen this. And then over here, 57.5. That's going to be about right in here. 57.5. And that's Q sub 3. So we have to put the min, the max, and the 3 quartile points. And that gives us the 4 quartiles, the 4 segments. And now we put our box in there. Where does the box go? From what 2 points determines the box? Anybody?
Quartile 1 to quartile 3.
Right, quartile 1 to quartile 3. So you just draw the segments and you draw your box. Quartile 1 to quartile 3. And then we draw the segment through quartile 2. And there's our box and whisker plot. And each quartile contains 25% of the data. Okay? And you can see from up here. You see this up here. To the left of 22.5 are 2 values. Between 22.5 and 35 are 2 values. 35 to 57.5 are 2 values. To the right of 57.5 are 2 values. So there's an equal number of data values in each quartile. Again, the segments are not of the same length, but they have the same number of data values. And that's box and whisker. So now that we've done a second one, you think you've got the routine now. Do we have this?
Yes.
Okay, that's what you're doing for homework tonight. You're doing 2 examples. And then on Monday, you'll be doing a couple more. And by then, you should have it down. Okay, it's Friday, boys, but it's not a payday Friday.